I once again want to talk to y'all about Subaudio. Subaudio covers vibrations that are below the range of human hearing, so generally below 20 hertz. But these frequencies can sneak into our recordings, and they can work against us in a number of ways. They can reduce our available dynamic range, they can cause phase issues with bass frequencies we want, and they can also result in wasted work for our speakers too. I'm going to be looking at things in a waveform editor, specifically Adobe Audition today. Mostly that's just because I am currently recording my voice in Audacity. But this same idea will hold true in your DAWs and in other steps of your workflow. I think about sample editing a lot in terms of editing assets for sampled instruments or for sound effects for video games and film. If you have Subaudio, it can be problematic in all steps of your process. And personally, learning to deal with this cleaned up the music that I was making a significant amount. So I have a few different files here today that just eyeballing them, I thought likely have Subaudio. Maybe we'll start with this one just because I checked this one beforehand. Okay, so why do I think this sound has Subaudio? Let me play it first. Now, we can see that there's a fast vibration here, but we can also see this slow vibration. Now, is this slow vibration something we want or not? There are different aesthetic standards for thinking about whether you want the low frequency sound component of this, but I'm not even talking about low frequencies we can hear today. I'm talking about Subaudio. So let's look at this. What I've highlighted right here is one cycle of this low frequency. So you notice it goes up and it goes down and comes back. I mean, we can zoom in a bit here. Maybe, let me make sure that I'm being clear and not cheating here. Okay, maybe that's more clearly a cycle. This is in all waveform editors, but it might be in a slightly different place in Audacity. Maybe I'll cut in a shot of where you find this in there. But here we have the information about the time here. And so the start and end time. But what we care about when we try to assess whether this is Subaudio or not is this duration. And so this duration is 0.086 seconds. So how do we figure out how many hertz that is? Well, the way that we do it is we say, okay, well, how many times can this happen in a second? Remember, the unit hertz is 1 seconds, right? And so if we want to know how many times 0.86 happens in a second, all we have to do is take 1 and divide it by 0.086, which gives us a result of 11.627. So that's how many hertz this is, 11.627 hertz, 628, I guess, if we're rounding up. But that is well below the realm of human hearing, and also well below the realm of what at least my studio speakers are able to produce. So again, below 20 hertz. So we know that there's a low frequency there that's below the realm of human hearing. Probably what happened was shaking these beads close to the microphone. There was an air pressure movement of, from the human movement there that the microphone captured, but is not technically a sound because it's not within the realm of our hearing. Now I'm going to fix this with a parametric EQ. Any software you're working probably has this. If you're working in Logic or Pro Tools, you probably have these EQs on the individual tracks. Normally, honestly, I would probably filter out frequencies below 40 hertz, but since we're being clear that, okay, we're working on Subaudio, things below the realm of human hearing, I'll put 20 hertz here. This is the slope, right? The more steep we get, the more likely we're causing phase issues around 20 hertz. So we'll just leave it be. 24 decibels per octave is fine, 4-pole filter. All right, so then since this is a high pass filter, all frequencies above 20 hertz are passing and the frequencies below are being filtered out. Let's see what we get. Okay. Command Z, that's before. Redo, after. I'm gonna go back to before for just 1 second. This before sample was normalized. This is the maximum volume here. It's at the maximum amplitude it could be. But redo. But now we can see, oh, this isn't normalized anymore because that low frequency, that Subaudio frequency, was taking up some of our dynamic range. Let me play the after. Before. Now I'm on a pretty decent set of speakers in a pretty good listening environment, and I cannot tell the difference between that, which is good because that means, okay, I haven't taken out any part of the sound that matters. But by taking out that part that we don't need, I can normalize this properly in the correct dynamic range, My speakers aren't going to be doing pointless motion back and forth. They're going to be vibrating at their sweet spot. And I've made a better sample that I can play back in a sampler interested. My last step would be to normalize this. Undo one more time. I mentioned before that usually I filter down to 40. Now this number is kind of arbitrary. I got this from a talk by Scott Wyatt, who's the composer of electronic music and whose quality of audio I've admired for a long time. You should check out his work. I'll throw some links in the description. But he said, you know, you really don't need a lot going on. Probably in most situations, you don't need much more than even 40 going on down there. Okay, so this means 24 decibels per octave. 20 hertz is an octave below, so that means maybe there's something in the range of hearing that's being tapered off here, but let's apply this and check this out. Again, before, after. Once again, we see that we've really cleaned that up a lot. Let's jump over to another example. Now this one, when I looked at it, it's great. Okay, so this is someone making a drip sound with their mouth. Okay, so we can see this frequency going on here, this faster frequency. But how fast is this low frequency? Let's highlight it and find out. Ballpark there. Let's go down to this duration. Oh, okay. 0.046. 1 divided by 0.046 is actually going to get us almost 22 hertz. Now, that's not really sub-audio. But is it audio that we care about? Again, I'm saying it's not sub-audio because it's above 20 hertz, just barely. So let's go in to our effects, parametric EQ. I'm going to keep it at 40, and let's apply. Now it's a very different waveform. Before, after. Let's listen to after, listen to before. Again, I'm in a pretty good listening environment and on good speakers, and I can't really hear the difference. So have I removed anything that's useful? Probably not. And then look at how much more space I have to normalize here. Let's see what this residual frequency that we have. We still have a lower frequency. Maybe that's it. 0.032. That's definitely going to be in the audible range, but we'd have to make an aesthetic call as to whether that's something we want to keep in or not. When you filter some sub-audio, that sub-audio might have some harmonics, right? Unless it's a perfect sine wave, the sub-audio has some harmonics in the audible range. There's not much we can do about that because actually those are things that we may hear. I mean, if I wanted to get more severe, let me just actually undo. So I'm back to this is the original file. In fact, I could go more severe here, but at this point, I'm no longer just taking out sub-audio. I'm actually significantly affecting things in the audible range. Now let's just listen to that. After, before. I do hear a difference in that, but I actually prefer the latter, the after. Again, before, you can sort of hear a bit of a thud in this one. After. So I'm no longer arguing that I didn't make any changes to the audible sound there, but I might still like this. Again, that's more about bass management than sub-audio. I wanted to look at a couple more of these examples. Here's a bongo sound. Again, if we're making samples for a sampler or effects we want to trigger in a game, really the sound starts here, right? But because of the visual impact of this sub-audio, let me just highlight that. Once again, it looks like we're just in the audible range here. So, you know, if I were to do this parametric EQ, let's go back to 40 rather than 80 since we agree that 80 impacts our sound. Now it immediately becomes clear that, oh, I could have actually trimmed this sample here. Is the water jug shaking? Yep. That's a pretty nice sample. It's harder to see this waveform go up and down here. I guess we could check over on this end. Mink. Oh, look at how slow that one is. That's 0.1 seconds. So even without doing division, I know that that's below 10 hertz. Select all. Effects. Once again, just to prove that it's really sub-audio. We'll go back to 20 hertz here. Apply. Before, after, before, after. Again, we see a couple of these things in here, which are just below 20 hertz. Again, I'm doing the division in my head. I know that if it's 0.05 or lower, then it's above 20 hertz. But again, before, that's normalized. When I do an after, I can now normalize that the rest of the way up. Gives me far more dynamic range to play with here. Does this make sense? I have another video on Subaudio where I really dug into the technical details of the problems it causes, but I wanted to go through a few examples to help show how you can spot it and how you can solve the issue. Again, this is a weird edit because I'm advocating that you don't hear the results for it. But if you do this edit early in your sample editing process, in your mixing, if you take care of avoiding sub-audio throughout your process, my argument is you will hear the results in your final product. For me, it was a clear change in the clarity of my sounds, and especially in the bass frequencies. Hope that's helpful. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Let me know what you come up with.